13 Questions by Man Transcending. Manhood in the Digital Age.
Welcome back to 13 Questions. We have Mr. Bill here with us. Bill, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Adam?
I'm good. No, I'm really good. We had a fun conversation with James Moore.
Yes, James was another Mark England referral, which he does mention in the interview.
Yeah, it's always seems to be fun to go down the Mark England. Yeah, actually, we're starting to have a theme here. We're calling it like the Mark England theme. Like he's getting a mythical status among guests here. But yeah, it was really fun. So yeah, I think you guys are going to enjoy this one.
Yeah, Mark's sent us a number of guests. We haven't got through them all yet, but I promise to keep on reminding. I think the 4 that haven't got back to us. I think this is guest number 6 from Mark, and they have all been great interviews. So I would highly encourage you to go back and seek those out, which would be after, I can't remember the episode names, but that doesn't matter. Just check for the ones after Mark England, right? Or actually start with the Mark England one. That's a good place to start.
Exactly. Right. And then become your own mythical status. Become the whatever your name is on the show. Send us some guests. These are just people that Mark thought would be interesting guests. And certainly they have. So if there's anybody out there that you want to hear how they answer the questions, do like Mark did. Send them this way. But on that, Bill, wanted to ask you about your gratitude. I'm feeling incredibly gratuitous. No, that's not the right word. I'm full of gratitude today. I'm really excited about it. You mind if I go first?
No, go for it. Yeah.
My gratitude is it's kind of folded together, but it's going to be the frequency of green. And I'll just throw in there like change, not like money change, but like just change. A lot of changes in my life are being forced, and that's forcing me to explore and look at a lot of new things. And I love that life forces these things on you sometimes, because you'll find things that you weren't looking for. Simple thing, trying to set up a home office, working from home, new transition in job, needing to increase the light, realizing that, I'm going to be spending, a lot more time in this room. I need to start, maximizing it for comfort, for health. And one of those, I suffer from migraines. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to get a light. Well, let's start looking at, lights that don't have blue or things that, I can trigger migraine. And I came across these bulbs that put out a 520 nanometer green light, which has been identified in a Harvard study for migraines as being the least likely to cause pain, at least in the study. So they would essentially take people with migraines and expose them to light and have them rate, how painful it was. And so, yeah, I purchased a floor lamp with 3 bulbs in it, and purchased 4 of these bulbs and got them plugged in so Bill can see it. But the light in my room is very much the lines of the cockpit logo for the 13 Questions. So it's it's actually a very nice synchronistic, like I don't want to call it predictive programming, but one of those the future is predicting my environment. I am now living in this cockpit surrounded by monitors and equipment, and I've got 2 mixer switches. It's essentially the same thing, but instead of flying the plane, I'm flying the audio.
You've manifested it in a different way.
Yes. And I'll see. I'll report back on this light. But I love this because, as we're doing with the color in, the jar and the gratitudes, and you talk about chakras and all the hippie woo-woo, but this is frequency, the color of frequency, the color that, when your senses get crossed, you're having a migraine, when things like photons start to cause pain, sound waves, those frequencies and vibrations can start affecting how you actually feel. You get a lot of your vitamin D, not just through your skin, but actually absorbing through your retina. What else are you absorbing? So, yeah, it's kind of wonderful to be, got to think about it this way, right? Like if you have a grow room, you're growing plants, any type of gardening, indoor gardening work, you're going to supplement with proper light and the proper spectrum that's going to be good for the plant that you're growing, the flavor, whatnot. So why wouldn't you think about that for yourself? If it can change the way the flavor profile, the nutrition, the health of a plant, why wouldn't it affect you in the same way? So, yeah, I've got a green grow light in my room to hopefully cut down on my migraines. And to boot, I also got some color therapy green glasses.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Just make everything so green. So I don't know what's going to happen to me over here, but yeah, I'm thankful for frequency and being able to utilize it because we're not surrounded by the forest. Maybe it's one of those things. Maybe it's in nature, I would be surrounded by so much green that these frequencies would prevent me from getting migraines. And now that I've, subjected myself to this technological living of being blasted by RF, I need to find the right type of RF or the right type of frequency to blast myself with.
Oh, I love it. The green, it looks great. It reminds me because of the connection to the migraine that I think the gua sha stone that I sent you is green.
Mhm.
Is also green jade.
It is. I have that sitting right here as well.
Migraines.
And it is very, very green in this light.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting note on the tie-in to. I don't have a stone for this episode, but yeah, the metaphysical. What do you call them? Characteristics of stones. It's something that we have been talking about recently, and we tie it into our gratitude jar working, which is a spell type thing, which we are doing. It involves energy transfers, which kind of ties into my gratitude, and I'll bring it back around to that point, which will work perfectly. So, my gratitude for this episode is actually parents, right? We talk about it a little bit in the interview, and I just finished a certain book. I won't name it here, leave that part. But yeah, our parents. It's actually been. We had a question on the show for a while. What was the most important lesson you learned from your parents? And we kind of we redid the order, and it kind of went away for a little bit. But I'm thinking it now might be a good time to resurrect it, just because in light of it seems to have been a theme that we've kind of lost. I think a little bit in progressing with the show is that building on the progress of which of those that have come before us. Like we're standing on the shoulders of giants. We are the culmination of all of this evolution up until this point, if you will. Right, we're the product of our parents, or if it wasn't for them, right, we wouldn't be here. So that's my gratitude. And our parents, they teach us our first kind of blueprint about how to operate in the world. So whether that's for good or for worse, it is what it is. So I just think sending gratitude towards that is probably a good thing to do, regardless of whether it was, a good thing or a bad thing, because that opens up opportunity.
Don't let the bad things go to waste. There's still lessons, you know. It's a lesson in the path not to take, the way not to act. As long as you can learn from it, then you can at least extract something instead of living with the pain of it. Instead, there's something to extract.
Right. Yeah, and it takes a little bit of work to go back and relook at your childhood and figure out what your exact like control drama was with your parents. This is how we first learn how to get energy out of the world. That's through of our parents, and then um,
That's so true.
yeah,
That's so true. Yeah. I mean, you're so helpless. You need someone to help you, and your actions elicit response, and those get baked in. Like it's the things that you feel a reaction. Well, why are you reacting that way? Well, yeah. Yeah, that's a very good thing to be introspective about. I never thought about that, Bill.
yeah. So I think that what do you think if we put bring that parent question back? I know that we have a new order, which James did not get to experience tonight because he has been taking some introspective looks at all the questions because these are tough questions. So anyway, I've sent him the old list. So maybe if we put this parent question at the hold on here, I have the list right in front of me.
Drawing it into a huge discussion, I almost want to just put it at the top.
Yeah, well, it's going to be to the top. Put it at the number 2.
Done. I agree.
Okay. Awesome. So I will get that list updated for us going forward. And yeah, we'll just keep this motif in mind. I wanted to resurrect it, I guess. Yeah, let's just send some good energy towards our parents, right? And speaking of energy, back to the energy exchange. When we freely give our energy in the hopes of, being of service to others, that is what we're kind of all about here on 13 Questions, and we're modeled, as a Value for Value podcast, which is something we got from Grammarica Boys, right? So as value for value, if you do, like, the value is the conversation, right? So if you do find something that you can take away from any of these conversations, we're over 100 episodes now. So if you want to express that in a monetarily way, what I will do for you then, as a bonus, I guess, bonus, quote unquote, is write your name in purple ink and put it in a jar, which is surrounded by a bunch of stones, which have certain metaphysical properties, which facilitate making a coherent heart and brain connection. And, tying this back into the gratitude and opening up a space for healing and for inviting more positive energy into our lives, right? So this is really just like an energy love generator type experiment we're doing. I called it a working because it really is an ongoing thing. It's working. It's in progress. So call it a jar spell if you want. I've kind of thought of it about that in that light a few times, but yeah. So if you hear anything here that resonates with you, and yeah,
So yeah, send send in your support, send your gratitude. We'll name you on the show, put you into the jar, and support us. If you like the show, if you gain value from this, it does cost money. Me and Bill do put a lot of time into this. There's a lot of work. There's so much more that Bill does behind the scenes with tracking down guests, scheduling. It yeah, it's a second time job. Not that we are complaining, but just saying that if you do find value in this, please support us. We want to keep doing this and keep improving and keep getting better. We've been very very blessed in having support and having equipment donated and being able to continue to upgrade and getting enough donations to continually improve. And it's a beautiful thing. So we're in it for the show. We're in it for the podcast. We're in it for the knowledge. Um, and we're here because of you. So support the show if you believe in us. We greatly appreciate it. And just as importantly, tell your friends. If you found value here, if you found wisdom, if this is something you enjoy, send it to somebody that you know. Yeah, wisdom should be for everybody, and it's free. The show is free. Share it.
And with that, this is 13 Questions with James Moore. Question number 1. What was the best advice ever given to you? Would you modify it at all today?
Best advice. So I wrote down 4 different things that I heard from 4 different people, and I wrote them down in order of what I thought was most important, most influential on me. Do you want me to pick the top one?
Let's start with the number 1, and then we can move on to the other 3, depending, on
Depending. Absolutely. The first one, I got this bit of advice from my dad, and I can remember that moment clear as day. He said, when you play adult games, you pay adult consequences. And that was, I was 18 years old, and I just told him that I got my girlfriend pregnant. And that's all he had to say. And then he kind of left me with that. You can take that however you will, because I've definitely reflected on that countless times. I'm 30 years old now, so for a long time. My daughter's going to be 12 soon, so I've thought about that a lot. And when I'm going to make a decision, when I'm going to do something, that is the first thing that I think of.
Oh, absolutely. That's a very adult. I mean, that's a very adult thing to do.
That's some grown up shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard, that's, I don't have any children myself, so that's really not anything that I can speak personally on, but I do have nieces and nephews, and I know how that has changed, my brother and sister's lives. So yeah, man, children are a huge, huge, I don't want to say consequence, but it's a responsibility, right? With great responsibility. Or what is that Spider-Man quote? Great power comes great
With
responsibility.
great power comes great responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that that wouldn't happen to be one of your other three, is it?
No, that's not one of the other. That one, that's a great line, a great quote. I think it's a bit overused. No, that wasn't one of my other three though.
What were the other three?
The other three, I'll run through these. Rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Start with the end in mind. And when raising little girls, never run out of apologies.
They're all very good, solid pieces of pithy advice, right?
Yeah.
Starting with the end in mind, I like that one. It's goal oriented, I would say. That's something I've really been digging into this year, especially with. I did a book club earlier on. Not me personally. I was in a book club with. Was about Vadim Zeland's reality transurfing, and he talks a lot about goal setting and having the end result, like starting with that first, right?
Yeah.
Having a clear definition and then going out and pursuing it like you would like you're going to get the mail. Like it's just something that's natural, and that happens. You don't really stress out too much about it because you have your what's going to happen in the end. That's your trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you keep that in mind, you'll eventually get there, right?
Yeah. It's a really solid advice. I'd never heard it until I did. Say again.
Who told you that?
A good friend of mine. His name is Trey Dunn. He was in a management position above me at a gym that I work at, and he would say that all the time. Begin with the end in mind, and I didn't fully understand or appreciate it the first 100 times I heard it, and then I got involved. You did a podcast with Mark England.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's a really cool dude. I went through his Enlifted program, and we talked heavily about goal setting and the importance of it. And that's when things started to. That's when that quote, that bit of advice, really started to click.
Oh yeah. Mark England has been a big inspiration on me personally and the show. He gave us 10 people to interview. You are one of those 10, and like it's every person that we've talked to, man. It's been not to to put any pressure on you, but it's been good stuff. Good stuff.
Mark, the people that go through the Enlifted program are just fucking hitters. You're a different person when you come out of that 12 weeks.
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand with like you were saying, setting goals and the whole. From what I can tell, the Enlifted program would meshes well with what Vadim was talking about in reality transurfing. So this whole year has just kind of been an adventure for me personally. And I hope to share that on the show. And yeah, you're part of that, so it's beautiful.
Hell yeah, very cool.
All right, question number 2: what do you willfully ignore?
Yeah, what do I choose to ignore? First thing that came to mind was my own needs, the things that I need personally. I tend to ignore those. I'm sure we could get real deep on that. I'm doing that in my own time. And then the second thing I wrote down was pointless arguments. I got no time for pointless arguments.
Which would be, how would you define like a pointless argument? Or
Just one example is like, if a coworker wants to talk shit about another coworker, and whether I agree with it or not, whether it starts an argument or not, I got no time for it.
yeah, sounds like gossip, right?
Gossip, yeah. And then there's other times, if I'm totally honest, gossip can be juicy. You wanna hear it. You want to talk about it. Depends what it is. And if you're just shit talking someone that you work with, we can all do better than that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, gossip has that pull to us because we're all curious, right?
Yeah.
Of our nature. Yeah. But there's a quote. It goes something along the lines of small minds talk about people, mediocre minds talk about events, and great minds talk about ideas, or something like that. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. Yeah,
I'm familiar with. I'm sure I've seen that floating around on Instagram.
Yeah,
more than once.
I probably butchered it, but that's something that comes.
I think you got it.
Really?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think you got it.
Yeah, that's something that comes to my mind constantly whenever celebrity whatever comes up in the news.
Yeah.
It's just not worth my time. Sorry.
I don't give a shit.
Question number 3. What book has been most influential on your life and why?
Hell yeah. Again, I wrote 2 books. But I'll start with the first one that I do think is the most influential. This is a bit of a meathead thing to say, but Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Modern Day Bodybuilding has to be the most influential book.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like an 800-page, it is an encyclopedia on modern day bodybuilding, just like the title says. I got my hands on that book when I was like 12 years old, maybe 11. And I wasn't interested in many other things beyond that. I read that book like front to back. Wouldn't say that I comprehended very much of it. Thankfully, there's a lot of pictures in that book. So that made it go by quick. That made it more digestible. I'm a personal trainer, personal coach, and I own my own training business. And I do believe that without that book, at such an influential age, I would not be where I'm at now.
Right on. That is not actually the first time that book has been an answer to this question on the show, believe it or not.
Okay.
Which is why, yeah, that was awesome. You saw me kind of chuckle when it got brought up.
I did.
The past guest that mentioned it is a fellow by the name of Matt Wilbur, and he was also involved in owning and operating a gym of some I don't know if it's I don't know, I can't remember if it's I don't know, combat's not sure, martial arts oriented or not, but I believe yours isn't it? Am I correct?
Yeah. It's, I don't own this gym. I'm a coach there, and I've been there actually, I think it was yesterday or the day before. It's my 6-year anniversary there. It's a Muay Thai influenced kickboxing gym.
Right on.
Yeah. Matt Wilburn.
Yeah, Wilbur. Wilbur. Yeah. I do not recall the episode title, but yeah, it was a while ago. I have had to dig back in my notes quite the ways to find that reference, but yeah, so it was just it's an encyclopedia, right? So it just kind of gives you step-by-step instructions then?
Yeah, it talks a lot about training to be a bodybuilder, which when I was 12, like I didn't know any differences between any of the iron sports. CrossFit wasn't a thing. Olympic weightlifting wasn't as big as it is in the US at the time. Powerlifting was very much like a fringe thing, but like everybody knew bodybuilding because everybody knows Arnold Schwarzenegger, like one of the most iconic people alive. And Yeah, 12-year-old boy just on the edge of puberty, like starting my shoulders started to expand, started to fucking grow, and it was like, yeah, let's build muscles. And that's what I did.
Hell yeah. You haven't looked back since. Awesome.
I did.
Question? Oh, go ahead.
Uh, there was another book which I feel like has also been referenced on the show. I'm assuming that it has. I'll make it quick. King, Warrior, Magician, Lover.
Yes, I am familiar with that.
Awesome fucking book. Then you already know.
Where did you encounter that book at?
Yeah, I'm looking for the.
Where did I encounter the book?
Mm-hmm.
I heard about it on another podcast with Mike Bledsoe probably 5 years ago. I had heard him talk about it on multiple shows with multiple people. He talked about, you know, how important and influential it was on his life. And I'd looked up to him. You know, I'd seen him as a bit of a role model, someone who's very interesting, and I wanted to model some parts of my life after his. And then one day, you know, I thought, fuck it, I'll just look it up on Amazon, you know, and to my surprise, it was, well, I guess shouldn't be surprised by that, but yeah, they had it. Bought the book, started reading, and every 3 or 4 pages I had to stop, you know, because they just like blew my wig back. It was very impactful. It took me a long time to finish that book because I took a long time to comprehend and digest everything.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the book. I don't know that it's been an answer on the show. At least I can't find it looking here at my notes briefly, but we do have a whole list of this on the website if anybody's interested in finding a good reading list.
Yeah, if you're a man and you want to know more about yourself and other men, read that book.
And I like how the book it goes in order too. Like it starts like as exactly what the title says. Like you start with the king and then you work your way over to the right side, which is the right side. But if you read from left to right, but yeah, Lover. So
yeah, phenomenal book. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
question number 4. What rule do you have for yourself that you never break, and why do you think that it's important?
No physical discipline to children. Who the fuck am I to hit a child? What is that about? That's a big one. I grew up in a very physically abusive household, and I remember one time I spanked my daughter. She was maybe 4 years old. You know, thinking about it now just makes me cringe. At the time she cried, I cried, and I was like, all right, this is so ridiculous. I will never do this again. That's I hear a lot of people give their opinions on that, and you know, I grew up and my dad hit me and I turned out fine. Like,
Yeah.
how do you know you turned out fine? Why do you think you're okay if you're out there hitting kids? It's not fucking cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I won't say that I was, beaten growing up, but I certainly was spanked and there was physical aspects to my discipline, right? But I would agree that it's funny that you bring this up because I just got done reading a book called The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, and in it they talk about how the way in which we and then our future generations will treat children, and our attitudes towards children will basically be treating them like adults, and not talking down to them, and not basically what happens is you are sucking the energies off the child by abusing it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
There's an
definitely.
exchange there. So by stopping that, then it's going to allow for an advance in
In
everybody's
society.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to break that cycle.
Yeah, it sounds terrifying. That's like a sentiment of Scientology. Treat your children like adults and terrifying.
Terrify them?
No,
What?
no, it's terrifying, but yeah, it is.
Oh, well, I mean, how? Like,
Oh no, I just mean, like you said, you need to treat children with a hand's glove. You treat a child like a child. Adults, physical altercation may be something that is required to defend or stand ground. But with a child, there's better ways.
yeah. I mean, and not to even mention the golden rule, right? Like, you wouldn't want to be hit. Like, so why would you hit another thing anyway? So, not to mention that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I've played like a lot of contact sports my whole life, and I never enjoyed getting hit.
Yeah, no, it's not the fun part.
It's not, it's yeah. So that's my number one rule that I will not break.
On question number 5. If I were to ask your best friend, what is the one thing they would say you need to work on the most and why?
Yeah. That one actually had to think the hardest about who is my best friend. And strangely enough, I do think the person that's like closest to me and knows me on a very sincere and very deep level is actually my ex-girlfriend. And she would say being vulnerable and being okay with admitting to being a victim. Yeah, she would tell me, my best friend would say that I need to be more vulnerable. Um, so I'm gonna very much be vulnerable, open up with you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the Enlifted program also talks a lot about the victim mentality, getting out of the victim mentality, realizing and recognizing when you're in there. And when Mark had explained that to me, he just laid it out so simply. I was able to think back to the last hour, the last day, the last week of like, holy shit, I've been a fucking victim for a long time. And that's why I feel like shit. That's why life sucks. And immediately changed things around and moved into the architect mentality, the architect mindset, building my life the way that I want it to be. And when I started dating this girl, that was something I'd shared with her, something that I had talked with her about. And I also opened up about my past and my childhood and my time. I was in the Army as well. And that was, people would say traumatic. Me going through the experiences the way I did with my relationship to those experiences. Yeah, I would say it's traumatic, but like, I don't need anything. I'm good. I'm doing okay. And she had said several times, like, it's okay to say that you are a victim. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. The vulnerability has definitely been, I guess, a buzzword on this show, something that we talk a lot about, it seems like. And the other side of the vulnerability is being, it's courageous to do that. It takes
Yeah.
courage because you're putting yourself out there and you could get hurt. And so that is, and if you're doing that consciously, like, yeah, that is a little scary, right? So, but
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable because I like to think of it as like almost part of like shadow work, maybe like the darker sides that maybe we don't want to look at, but really kind of need to if we want to move on, right? So
Yeah.
no, I love the answer. Yeah. Question number 6. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Hmm. Being alone. Being alone. And I wrote laying in bed at night or driving. Okay. So yeah, 2 examples of being alone. Driving all the time. I get so fucking creative when I'm just driving down the road, going from point A to point B. I wish that I could just pull out a pen and paper and start writing things down. Of course, I can't do that. That's incredibly dangerous. I choose not to do that. Times when I'm most alone and isolated, my mind will wander and begin to think more creatively, spiritually and emotionally, rather than off of pure logic. Sorry, I'm having some trouble with my own handwriting. Yeah, I'm a very logical person, especially when I'm interacting with other people. Like that's how I operate. And I let go of that when I don't have to be logical when I'm by myself.
Is that would you describe yourself as being more of an introvert than an extrovert?
I got some beef with those words. I think the dictionary meaning and how people use them in society are very different. You know,
Okay.
a really great way that I heard it put to me was: imagine you're at a party and all your friends are there. It's like everybody that you want to be there is there. You know, all good things. And if you were to go to that party, would you feel more tired or more energized by being around those people? And when it's put that way, then I would go to the extroverted side of, yeah, I want to go to that party. I want to go kick it with my friends, and I will feel energized by that, you know? And then the opposite of, like, I wouldn't want to go to a party of a bunch of assholes or people that I don't fuck with. I would totally be turned off by that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, being alone is definitely sometimes seen in a negative light, like because it can be boring, I guess. But
Yeah.
that opens up.
Sometimes.
It can, yeah. I mean, sometimes, but it also opens up space for things to ideas to flow into, and like really to digest things, and it opens up areas for new ideas to come up. And yeah, I spend a considerable amount of time alone now. So not
Yeah.
I mean, a whole lot. I still have a dog and 3 cats and a wife and everything, but I work from home. So yeah, there there's a time for reflection is definitely when
Mm-hmm.
you're open, more open, can be more open to source, I think.
Yeah. Having that time to like process, digest things, really think about like what you said, what you did, what happened. Very important. I spend a lot of FaceTime with people. So typically at the end of the day, I'm pretty spent, and then coming home to just relax, chill out, be alone is necessary for me to then go do it again the next day.
Yeah, definitely got to recharge. It's interesting that I get to see, I guess, yeah, I'm just thinking about, yeah. Anyway, moving on to question number 7. I think this is the last one for me, and Adam will take over. But that is, what is, I'm sorry, what was the most embarrassing or humbling experience of your life?
It's like so many things have embarrassed me. I've been embarrassed so many times. The most humbling experience, I wrote down basic training. That was a very humbling experience for me as a young kid. It was pretty fucking embarrassing too. All right, there was one incident in basic training. We had to walk through the chow hall line. We had to hold cups. We had to hold 2 cups, fill them up with water, hold them up like this. There's a reason why you do that, but they don't tell you until later on. And everybody's got their head shaved, and you got to shave your face every day. And we had done combatives, which is like wrestling, the day before, and I had a big bruise on my forehead. And then I had a fucking giant like pimple, um, zit that had just swollen up and gotten huge on the other side. So I had these 2 lumps on my forehead. And Drill Sergeant Bavard is his fucking name. And I'm standing there in the chow hall, and he made me stand at the corner in front of the entire company, so like 300 plus people. And he made me baa like a sheep because it looked like I had these little horns on my forehead. He made me baa like a sheep while everybody just like ate food and laughed at me.
Yeah. Talk about embarrassing.
It was embarrassing, yeah. But like I haven't seen any of those people in a long time, and it's a funny story. I get to share that with people. I get a good laugh out of it now.
I'm glad you can laugh about it.
Yeah.
Public speaking will be easier now because compared to that, anything.
Yeah. Because I've done that. It's not a problem.
What is your greatest fear? How did you overcome it if you have?
If I have, yeah. I think my greatest fear is being controlled, manipulated. It's happened before in past relationships, whether they be romantic or professional. I would argue that, I allowed myself to be controlled, and that may have been, for this sense of safety and security, or maybe I was naive. Yeah, thinking about that, that's the one thing that creeps me out. Spiders suck. I don't like them. I don't want to be around snakes. I don't believe in ghosts. Being controlled.
Getting to be a scary world out there then.
What's up?
It's getting to be a scary world out there then.
Yeah. A lot of control going around.
Yeah, craziness, but at least I think we're getting more freedom of the mind. As crazy as it seems, we're all at least exposed to incredibly wild thoughts and ideas, and we're allowed to go places that we didn't even know we could go before.
Yeah, that's very true.
For now, until as long as the internet stays free, we're good, right? By free, I mean.
That's right. You're going to need a VPN for your brain soon.
Yeah, I don't have to scan my eyebrow hairs in or something right now.
What is your single greatest driving force in life, and how do you further it?
I wrote down a lot for this. Okay, here it goes. Single greatest driving force. My father and my daughter. My father had potential to be great. He chose to be an abusive alcoholic. My daughter is the next generation. I want her to be better than me, to grow and to flourish, to be happy, healthy, and strong. My father was afraid of me growing to be better than him, and in that he failed me. I built myself to what I am now, and to further it, I will pass on the tools I've gathered to my daughter, the next generation.
That's amazing. That I was just talking about the book earlier about the Celestine prophecy, and one of the things it talks about before uh, the way we treat our children is the relationships that we had with our parents, and that's really what we have to build off of moving forward, whether we like it or not. Like whether it's a good relationship or a bad, like it is what it is, right?
Yeah, you can't change it.
Well, sometimes somebody will show you the path you don't want to go on. And, as bad as it is, it's, what not to do. And it's a shortcut to goodness.
Yeah. I'm not going to turn that fucking way. I'm not going there. Yeah. It can be helpful, and it's whatever you choose to do with it. You could take anybody. Like my father was an alcoholic, so what do you expect? I became an alcoholic. Or my father is an alcoholic. So what do you expect? I never touch that shit. I do these things instead.
Yeah, it seems like it, especially for that one, right? It's either the person runs in the opposite direction or ends up more or less the same, right?
Yeah.
Alcohol, yeah.
Have you ever heard that we become what we hate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you let things live in your mind and you're constantly thinking about it, yeah, I mean,
You're putting your attention towards it.
it's there. Yeah. And
Yeah.
craziness.
That can bake your noodle.
Who were or are your role models and why?
The first guy I wrote down Jack Black, the actor. And I wrote that down because like he came to mind. It felt genuine. It does feel genuine. And whenever I was growing up, he starred in a shitload of movies. I watched them and they were so funny. And, that may or may not have been the best role model. And I have a bit more on that. After him, I wrote myself. I'm really fucking proud of myself. I had no positive or strong male role models in my life. So I chose what I knew, and that was a bunch of shitheads. When I grew older, and I put in 26, when I got to be that age, I began to question everything I thought I knew. I began to collect role models or father figures, taking parts of them that I liked and comprising myself. There's a famous line in the movie School of Rock with Jack Black. He says, "Those who can't do teach, and those who can't teach Jim." I loved that movie when I was a small child, and I bought a guitar and I wanted to learn how to play. I never did, but I ended up teaching fucking Jim, not realizing like how impactful that scene was. I like to joke about it. Yeah, I'm a gym teacher.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had an answer like that. And I absolutely love that you can look at your role models and take the best parts of them and their modalities and build upon it into making it the person that you want to be, not molding yourself after an individual's, roadmapped life.
Yeah. Yeah. That word roadmap, an individual's roadmap to life. Again, something my friend, I talked about him earlier, Trey Dunn, he used to say this a lot. He would use the term blueprint. Like my father didn't have the blueprint that I wanted to read, for the life that I wanted to build. So I had to go and find one. I had to go find a similar blueprint that I wanted to build off of. That's what he would say. And I think that's such a great way to say it. That made sense to me immediately. And that's what I did.
I love it too. It's also a good way to keep yourself from being caught in patterns that are just kind of, these waves of things that we're following and doing that we don't really know why, but we all tend to be wearing the same shoes and, fashion colors. And, we don't need to see the big picture sometimes. It's, what's going to work for me today in my community and my family.
Yeah. Very, very true.
What quality do you most admire in a woman?
Confidence. I love it. I am so attracted to a strong and confident woman. I see it in body language a lot. I think that's a very big tell. That's something I pay attention to. Also, the gym that I work at is a female empowerment gym, surrounded by women all the time, and learned a lot about body language over the last decade. You can always tell someone very confident by the way they posture, by the way they hold themselves, by the way they present themselves to a conversation, to a person, and the opposite. That's something I find that incredibly attractive.
there's an art to reading people, right? And it takes
Yeah.
practice, and sounds like you've got the a good setup to do that. You know.
Yeah. I'd like to think I'm pretty good at it, but I'm also, there's countless times where shit just goes over my head. I totally miss it. So
Yeah, I know that there's some mentalists, quote unquote mentalists, right, out on magicians or whatever out there that they use body language as a huge part of their act or routine or whatever as the tells to how to communicate with the crowd or how to pick people out or whatever. So there's
yeah.
definitely and yeah, that's a yeah.
Well, your body's always communicating what's going on inside.
Mhm.
And it's the same way that a confident person, well, if you want to be that confident person, stand in a superhero pose, stand like Superman for 5 minutes and see how you feel. You're going to feel a different feeling. You're going to feel empowered. You're going to feel more superhero like. And so these things project out what you feel, whether you like it or not. So, yeah, a really good person that's adept is going to know a lot more about you sometimes than you necessarily will know just by paying attention.
Yeah. I think body language is universal. You know,
Absolutely.
it's the one thing, like everybody, we're all different. We're all special. Yeah. But really, we're all very, very alike in a lot of ways, like facial expressions, body language, universal.
Yeah, one of the things I've been fascinated by, there was a podcast that Radiolab did. I can't think of the name now, but it was with a director who was very famous, and or I shouldn't say director, an editor, and he was editing films. And he happened to realize that while he was doing edits, he happened to be cutting the scenes when people were blinking. And so they ended up doing all this research on it and finding out that in a theater, it's something like, like 70 plus percentage of the people in a theater at any given time are blinking at the same time. And it's that blinking is also a social cue. It's part of what you're doing. And then when you just start taking every single little facial expression, the way that you're moving your body, if you get into interrogation, how closed you are, how open you are to a question and being asked and your emotions, it's an amazing book. And I think it's one of those things that we all were probably way, way better at. If you're only living with 25 or 100 people in a community and you're constantly surrounded, you hear everything, like you would be very, very tuned in. But now, it's all social media, fake stuff. And, we're just presented with so much. So we're not really focused in on what a person says and the meaning I need to listen to what you say so I don't die from the wolf.
Yeah.
Now it's figure out how to, I don't know.
How to get a bunch of likes and follows.
Exactly.
Man, yeah. Now that you say it that way, it's like it's a perishable skill. That if you don't use it, you lose it. And I can see that. I have a client. I have a client he's social media famous, right? He has millions of followers on a specific platform, and it took me a very long time to really like get close to him, to build rapport with him, build a relationship. And he's a good dude. He's a good kid. He spends all of his time on the internet, not truly interacting with people face to face. And it's like it's almost like he's lost that skill.
Well, it's also a beautiful thing. And I think about this in professions that people have, like comedians, blue collar workers, gym. You're seeing a large spectrum of society and people getting together. And so you have a different understanding than if you're involved in that likes and groups, not really meeting people in person and not, you're seeing a segment of society, but it's very polarized, echo chambered, curated portion of society.
Yeah.
It's very easy.
Curated.
Yeah. And it's one of those crazy things, celebrity power, it can all go to your head, but how can it not? Because that's all you're exposed to. Like we are, culture is, we are part of it, part of who we are is the things that surround us. So it's a real important lesson in just even in everything you do in life, it is super important, like you said, to surround yourself with just, those people, the right people.
Very important.
What is the most courageous thing you have ever done or seen in your life?
The first thing I wrote was I deployed to Afghanistan. So when I was in the Army, I had the option to volunteer. It was 2013, and I spent a year in Afghanistan. And there's a lot of people that find that out about me. They like to tell me that's such a courageous or an honorable thing. It's so great that you did that. I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. Proud of my service, happy about it. It's all, I can't change it. It's all well and done. But at the same time, I don't know that I really feel like that was the most courageous. It's like I don't know, automatic thing that people expect. What I do think is very courageous is I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and when I moved here, I moved from a small town in Western Kentucky. I had $100 to my name. I quit my job on Wednesday. I moved here on Thursday. If it didn't fit in my Jeep, I didn't take it, and I spent 3 months being homeless, trying to figure my life out. And that was 7 years ago, and I've really made things work. And people they don't get out of my hometown. If I go back there today, everybody I graduated high school with is still there. And that was not the place for me.
Isn't it? Because I've recently moved out of my own hometown, and it seems like if you didn't get out in your college, like after graduating or whatever through that, at least my class, right? In school, you're pretty much stuck there, and I went to a local college, so I was there for those years anyway. So there's definitely something to say about what seems like there's some of moving away from home and making it somewhere else, right?
Yeah, it's a big thing. It's a scary thing. Like, not everybody does it. Not everybody wants to do it. My oldest sister still lives in our hometown, and she will not fucking leave. I don't know why. She's so attached to it.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing is all the family that you leave if there are family, if you have family in your hometown, right? But
yeah, we're not even from there. That's the thing. Is like our mom still lives there, so that's a big part of family. But as far as like extended relatives, no, we're not from Kentucky. But that's where she wants to be. That's where she wants to stay.
Yeah, I imagine that spending that time, without a job and on the streets was probably like an incredibly good education
Oh yeah.
in just so many ways. It's certainly something that most people don't experience except for in passing, going down the streets.
I was lucky. I had a job. I got a job. I was never jobless. Well, I got a job. They gave me the runaround. I quit, and then within a handful of days, I had another one. That was like I knew I had to work. I had to make money. But yeah, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about people in a metro area, how they act and operate, like what's important to them, what's not, what they're into, almost how to talk another language. People that live in the city do not act the same as people who live in a rural farming community. Yeah, I learned how to do that.
did it increase your faith in humanity at all, or was it?
Did it? Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't say that I really thought about it. Now the way fucking people drive in this town, that does not increase my faith in humanity at all.
That's okay. Elon will save us
Yeah.
from that horror.
Yeah, he'll build a tunnel.
Flying cars or something. It's 2022, damn it. Where's my flying car? It would be worse though, maybe. I don't know. Anyway.
I don't even drive very much anymore. I just moved into this apartment and I'm right in the middle of downtown. I can walk everywhere. Nice. I don't need a fucking flying car.
Hell no, it's free exercise.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
need the flying car to get out of Dodge when something goes hairy.
yeah. And it's, it makes sense. Like his argument to no flying cars is like people run out of gas on the side of the road all the time. Those people are fucking incompetent. And like if you're 1,000 feet in the air and you run out of gas or whatever fuel you have,
That'd be worse.
you learn that lesson one time. Like you're gonna die.
I'm kind of okay with this. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot more skilled people would be on the road if you die
That's
when you got a flat tire every time. And you
very
couldn't
true. Very true. It's a new like survival of the fittest, but like I don't know. I wouldn't want to be hanging out and then a car falls out of the sky, a vehicle falls out of the sky and lands close to me.
That's fine.
That's not a good day.
We're bringing back the Zeppelin, so we'll just film with helium. All right. The capstone, the final question, the 13th.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a man in today's world?
This is such a good question. Everybody that I've asked this question to, every man that I've asked, no one's really been able to give a solid answer. And I think that's okay. I wrote a lot. I wrote a bit of a haiku, really. And this was just after finishing that book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. I filled all these out probably the next day. A man provides. A man is responsible for others. A man is benevolent and decisive, just and merciful. A man is wise and nurturing. A man has passion for life. Went on to write the statement, heavily influenced by King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. All of the qualities can be interpreted differently and are rare to see entirely in one person. Most people are a poor judge of manliness or masculinity because they themselves are not men or have not yet been crowned with manliness. And I got that from another book, which is called The Power of a Man. Yeah, only a man who has all these qualities can crown another man with manliness. And those are some other statements that really stood out to me from that book. That was a heavily Christian religious book. Not to knock that. I'm not a Christian man, and I did still get much from that book. It was great. They talked a lot about authentic masculinity. It was cool.
Well, that speaks to me on the way of even just like martial arts. You know, it says that, you know, manliness, masculinity, it's not just something very simple, meathead. It's a very complicated thing. It's something that's hard to master. It's like, you know, marriage is work. You know, marriage is a thing that requires a lot of input, and there are, you know, ways and modalities, and you need to learn these things to operate properly. And, you know, it makes sense that, you know, who is the expert? Well, the expert is the person that has gotten there. You know, the person that gives you your black belt gives it to you because they have attained skills that other people can only see in the end. You know, there is no official form or, you know, skill test to like walk through to get here. It's, you know, it's very much built in an artistic way. So I absolutely love that. That's a very beautiful way to look at it. And it's a very intrinsic and deep thing.
Yeah, it's not easy being a man. It's not easy to acquire all of these qualities to be like a true man. It's really, again, I'm going to touch on the book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. The way they started it and the way they ended it was very interesting, They said, they talked about toxic masculinity, and that's a term that's, it's brought up and thrown around so easily. Anytime a guy does something that pisses somebody else off, they just immediately toxic masculinity. And they challenge that in this book, which again, if you're listening, please read it. Buy the used copy. It's so fucking worth it. They challenge that with, instead of toxic masculinity, isn't this really just boy psychology? This is the way that young boys behave because they don't understand how to process their emotions. So just because the person that's doing this act is, 30 years old and legally an adult in the United States, doesn't mean they're a man. They're acting from a place of a boy because they don't know any better. Physically, they've, grown to manhood, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, they're not acting as a man. What they're doing is not masculine. It's something that a boy would do.
Man, it seems like something that cultures used to understand. You would have to go through, a trial. You'd have to go through tests. There would be
rites of passage.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a lot of that can just be, how much do you believe in yourself? What are you capable of? What can you push yourself through? What are the things you do when you need to do? I'm speaking very generally here, but a lot of people in the world, the tests we have are very different. And the consequence, truthfully, when the consequences aren't life and death, true life and death to the extreme, true pain to true consequence, we don't learn. And, we've kind of nerfed the world to where I never had a rite of passage. Not, my rites of passage were making those mistakes on my own without guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was another thing that I had spoken about with some friends recently, was like, what is the rite of passage? What would be a rite of passage? And if you look at like every culture across the world, East, West, wherever they were 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, like every culture had a rite of passage. Like you were not a man until you did this. And some of them are fucking crazy. Like, I don't want to put my hand in the fire ants. I don't want to do that. I don't want to, it sounds really cool. Like you go out, you kill the wolf, you bring the wolf back to the village, you're a man now. Something going down like that, 1,000 years ago makes sense. That tracks. I get it. Given how society was, that's a very manly thing to do. You got to provide. You provide this wolf the pelt, the meat, whatever. That's great. Can't do that nowadays. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of things in place, a lot of controls. And there's also, we live in a totally different society. There's a different way to act. So you can do that. Society may not like it. They may not agree with, like, that doesn't make you a man. I think it'd be really cool to have a rite of passage, something that was, derived from man psychology versus boy psychology, something that is legitimate and not just like, hey, watch this. I'm going to do some manly shit. I'll think on that for a while.
Yeah, if we could figure out a way to have something like that in the world, that would truly be great. As crazy as it is, outside of like a reaction, just the idea, the fire ant one has always spoke to me, that type of, it is doing something that you absolutely don't want to do, that's unbearable, that the only way you're going to get through it is through force of will and doing it. And that's how some things happen in life. And at least in my life, my rites of passion have been the guilt and regret of things afterwards. Well, now I've had to live through not doing the right thing, and the guilt and regret and holding on to that. When sometimes there's something that just needs to get done, and the switch becomes, well, I got to do it. And you can, because that you can, because when you go through those extreme things, you learn, at least I can push through anything. That's how I view it. And yeah, it would be beautiful if we could just bring that to everyone, bring something like that back.
Yeah. I bet you'd find them easily in a more like a rural community. My mind goes to like ranchers out west, like guys out in Wyoming. I'm sure like bull riding or whatever they do, cattle wrangling.
Man, just being the ranch hand could be that. Something you got to do every day.
Hand. Yeah, you got to be a hard man to go out here. Weather's going to be harsh all 4 seasons. You're dealing with these beasts of the land, and this is a job. Yeah, you have to do this. They again in these books they talk about some rites of passage, and like you said, this is something you have to endure. This is something that's going to be incredibly painful. And they talk about killing the boy. Like this is when you kill the boy. Hell, that was brought up in Game of Thrones. It was a really good scene. Kill the boy, Jon Snow, so that the man can come forward. Like there's not everybody has a big defining battle when you're leading your people into a battle against evil. That doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen for everybody. And you can pick your battle. You can interpret that however you'd like.
Yeah, anything out in the wilderness, out in nature, I think is a good place to start. I know that hunting is often used as a rite of passage for young men, traditionally in some instances. But I'm just trying to think of anything that might be that might pass for a rite of passage in, I don't know, like an urban metropolitan setting. And the only things that come to mind are like getting your driver's license when you're 16, right? Maybe. And then you get to vote at 18, drink when you're 21. And all these things do is like tie us closer to.
Yeah, it's probably in team sports, things like that, having to do extreme, physical exertion, just for training for a skill. But outside of that, I can't even think of anything. Got to bring it back, James. Yeah. Got to bring it back.
Which means that there's plenty of room for opportunity and growth, and we can make whatever.
Nowhere to go but up.
Exactly. Right.
All right. Well, that was the 13.
Yeah, those are solid questions. I like to share these with all my friends and get other people's
good questions. And they're good questions to sit around and ask and to converse with your friends, because at least for me in answering, when you sit down and think about them, I mean, it's like it's not a quick, easy answer. It's introspective. You learn about yourself trying to answer the questions.
Yeah, you do. Like you can reflect and look back on your life about things that you've forgotten about, and you can look at it with a different lens, maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Please do share as much as possible. We had a past guest that's a post-secondary, like a college teacher up in Canada. He used this as part of his class. Like he gave it to his students, and they did something with it. I can't remember, but yeah, dude, it's these questions are. I mean, they made me think as we were talking before we recorded. That took me a while too. So
yeah,
I'm glad that you were able to get some value out of them.
Oh, yeah. A ton of value. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, no, thank you for coming. It was wonderful being able to have Mark on the show. It's wonderful being able to have you on the show. It's just beautiful seeing, just the wonderful minds out there. And yeah, it's like, I can't express enough how much we appreciate you spending your time. The time it's one thing that, like, if you really think about what life is, that is it. Me giving that to you, you giving that to us. There's nothing more valuable than I could ask, because we have truly gotten a piece of your life. And thankfully, we got some wisdom with it as well.
Yeah, it was awesome. I appreciate everything. Keep your heads up, keep moving forward, and keep doing what you're doing.
Right back at you, my friend. Right back at you.
Hayo wana hawene. Hayo wana hawene. Yo,
why is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why your suicide rates on the rest so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians and use labels? Now that's racism.
Hayo wana hawene.
Why?
Hayo wana hawene. Yo, why? Hayo wana hawene.
Why?
Hayo wana hawene. Yo, why? Hayo wana hawene.
Why?
Hayo wana hawene. Yo, why? Hayo wana hawene.
Why?
Hayo wana hawene. Yo,
Why is
why?
there innocent people locked up for life, while some people can't say nothing nice? Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why. And why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why. And why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on wrecking these fat beats? And teachers don't make more than professional athletes. And why? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why?
Hayo wana hawene.
Why?
Hayo wana hawene. Yo, why? Hayo wana hawene.
Why?
Hayo wana hawene. Yo, why? Hayo wana hawene. Hayo wana hawene. Yo, why? Hayo wana hawene. Hayo wana hawene. Yo, why?
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.